Buffalo News coming up next.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today. It is Friday, December 9th. Okay, try this again. It is Friday, January 9th. December's gone. And it is now 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm glad to be back after a couple of weeks of not broadcasting on Friday, and here we are.
And I missed it.
And your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. Leading off with the weather once she gets settled.
Yeah, J.J. got stuck in a gridlock. Both Niagara Street and the Thruway were a standstill. You couldn't move.
So I was prepared to just start here, but as long as J.J.'s here, we'll let her do the reading of the weather, and then I can pick up the front page and she can get her bearings after that.
Thank you, Don. I'm glad you were ready to cover. Well, today it's breezy with occasional rain, if that's what you want to call that. It's a blast out there.
We're talking 60-mile-an-hour gusts by noontime or so.
Right, high of 55, low clouds tonight, low 31. Colder tomorrow with periods of rain and drizzle beginning in the late morning with a high of 39 and a low of 31. Saturday will be breezy with a morning flurry. Winter will be coming back with a high of 34 and a low of 26. Monday, it'll be cloudy and breezy with a high of 37 and a low of 32. Tuesday will be a high of 39 and a low of 36, turning cloudy. Wednesday, now it might be raining or snowing. Either one, and it'll be a high of 39 and a low of 19. And then Thursday, we're going to have increasing amounts of sun with a high of 27 and a low of 19. And for our almanac, the high and low yesterday there was a high of 50 and a low of 34. Yeah, felt like putting on my suntan lotion. And we had the normal high and low was 33 and 20. The record high was 66 in 2008. The record low was -6 in 1968. And last year's high was 21 and the low was 14. And the air quality index is good. And I won't even bother with the ski conditions because I think they're going to be terrible everywhere. The national extremes, the high was McAllen, Texas at 88 degrees, and the low was at a place called Wolf Point, Montana at 2 degrees. The sun rose this morning at 7:46 a.m., and it will set tonight at 5 o'clock. And there's not going to be a moonrise today, not that you could see with the clouds even if there was one. No moonrise, but the moon will set at 11:04 a.m. And we do not have a weather fact. However, the snow derby says Buffalo got 1.25 inches of snow in the month to date, and the season's high is 36.1 inches. And just off the record there, Syracuse has a high at 81 inches of snow. So wow. That's the weather for you.
Turning to the front page, the leading article from John Harris, the news staff reporter, says, the situation right now at Erie County Medical Center reminds Dr. Samuel Cloud in some ways of the COVID-19 pandemic. There aren't quite as many flu admissions now as there were COVID-19 admissions then. But add this flu surge to the ongoing challenges that ECMC, like hospitals across the country, has had discharging patients to nursing homes and other post-acute settings, and has made for stressful day-to-day operations at Western New York's primary trauma center. It's very uncomfortable in the emergency department because there's so many admitted patients, said Cloud, ECMC's chief medical officer. Local hospitals and ambulance services are experiencing significant strain because there are more patients with respiratory symptoms and longer delays in patient transfers to follow-up care facilities, the Erie County Department of Health said yesterday. With that in mind, county public health officials are urging residents to reserve hospital visits and ambulance transport requests for true medical emergencies. If patients with minor symptoms call for an ambulance or visit an emergency room, they use limited hospital services that are needed for patients with severe, life-threatening conditions, the county medical or health department said. Most people with influenza, a stomach bug, norovirus, or the common cold have self-limiting conditions, which means after a few days or a week of feeling miserable and plenty of rest and fluids, symptoms end, said Dr. Gail Burstein, the county's health commissioner. There is a fine balance here. We do not want people to second-guess calling 911 or going to the hospital. However, going to the ED, emergency department, with a minor cough or runny nose is a slower, less effective, and more efficient way to manage those symptoms. For non-urgent health concerns, ED waiting times are very long right now, and you might catch another illness in the waiting room. In a call with county health department staff this week, emergency medical service agencies and hospital representatives reported emergency department volumes that have been high for several weeks. That is leading to longer than usual wait times for patients to be triaged and seen. Meanwhile, ambulance crews are seeing long turnaround times of up to 2 to 3 hours to transfer patients to hospital care. Erie County residents are asked to consider alternatives for non-urgent medical needs, including urgent care centers, primary care providers, and telehealth services. To be clear, however, the health department told residents to call 911 for symptoms that are life-threatening, such as choking, severe shortness of breath or trouble breathing, chest pain or pressure, uncontrolled bleeding, severe burns, head injuries or suspected head injuries, sudden weakness, numbness, confusion or stroke symptoms, and poisoning or drug overdoses. Cloud echoed that sentiment, noticing ECMC always manages to find room for a true emergency. If able, however, Cloud advised residents with non-urgent medical needs to consult with a primary care doctor who can help them decide whether they need an ambulance or hospital. Catholic Health also reported increased strain on its emergency departments, resulting in longer wait times for patients requiring immediate evaluation and treatment. Kaleida Health is seeing higher than normal volumes in its emergency departments and average wait times of several hours over the past few weeks. Spokesperson Jacqueline Betts said, for faster care, Kaleida is advising people to call their primary care provider, visit the emergency department at DeGraff Medical Park in North Tonawanda, or schedule a virtual care appointment at kalaidahealth.org/video visits. In his nearly three-decade career, Cloud says this is the worst flu season he has seen. In Erie County, flu cases totaled 1,704 for the week ended December 27th, up from 1,496 for the prior week. Both of these figures are high compared with recent years. In the 2024-25 season, the highest weekly total in Erie County was 1,052 flu cases in mid-February. The 23-24 season never eclipsed 700 flu cases in a week. Now we have 1,700. Flu hospitalizations in Erie County hit 219 during Christmas week. That's hospitalizations, up from 130 the week prior. Low vaccination rates, waning immunity, and a rapidly circulating variant called subclade K, a group of influenza A, H3N2, are some of the factors behind the severe flu season. We can expect to see flu circulating into the spring, Burstein said. There's still time to get an influenza vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, or RSV vaccine. These are safe and effective preventive measures. Also, follow other basic guidance to reduce the risk of respiratory illness transmission. Stay home and away from others when sick, wash your hands, and wear a mask, especially if you're an older adult or have chronic medical conditions. In the worst days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Cloud said ECMC had more than 100 COVID-19 patients in the hospital. Right now, ECMC has anywhere from 20 to 30 flu-positive patients in-house at all times, but the hospital also expects another 3 weeks of increasing flu admissions before influenza peaks for the season, Cloud said. This is bad timing for another viral pandemic, he said. The reason it is bad timing is because ECMC, among other hospitals, continues to struggle to discharge patients from the hospital who need to be transferred somewhere else. Specifically, alternative levels of care, or ALC, is a term that applies to patients who occupy a hospital bed but no longer need to be there. As of yesterday morning, ECMC had 58 ALC patients, and that figure has been reliably in the 50s for weeks and weeks now, Cloud said. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, ECMC would have about 12 to 15 patients in the ALC list at any given time. At the peak of COVID-19, that figure was around 70 patients. We have lost our surge capacity because of this chronic and ongoing ALC crisis, Cloud said. Again, ALC is alternative level of care. One of the reasons for this patient bottleneck is because many nursing homes, long struggling with staffing, aren't operating as many beds and are unable to take in as many patients from hospitals. Further, Cloud mentioned, nursing homes can get overwhelmed during respiratory season with illnesses spreading internally, further hindering them from taking new patients. We've got this pincer movement on the hospital where we can't get patients out, we've got extra patients coming in, and so we're ending up where our emergency department is full of admitted patients instead of having those beds available for new patients, Cloud explained. In the last year, Cloud said ECMC had put more resources in the front of the emergency department with doctors, physician assistants, and nurse practitioners doing brief assessments of patients to determine whether they need to be admitted immediately if they can stay in the waiting room while providers draw up lab work and imaging services. That strategy, Cloud said, helped ECMC actually improve its wait times last year. Seeing patients up front and keeping people in the waiting room while they're undergoing a workup where we can safely do so is really the only way to see patients right now, he said. This all shows how intricately connected the healthcare system is and how just one issue in one of its parts can affect the whole structure. For instance, ambulance crews are seeing turnaround times of up to 2 to 3 hours to transfer patients to hospital care. When ambulances respond to a non-emergent call, they are not available when an emergency happens, said Gregory Gill, the County Health Department's Deputy Commissioner for Emergency Medical Services. Once at the hospital, ambulances line up with all the patients arriving at the hospital. Patients are treated in hospital by severity of illness, not how they arrived, so going in by ambulance will not push you to the start of the line. And during that wait, the ambulance is out of service and not available to respond to emergencies. Cloud said that some ambulance crews end up waiting for 2 hours at ECMC until the hospital can figure out how and where to get the patient into a treatment space. Cloud sees it all as an ecosystem with EMS, emergency medical services, on the front end, then the hospital and post-acute facilities such as nursing homes on the back end. There are a lot of headwinds going into 2026 for hospitals, but one of the main headwinds, especially here in Western New York, is we don't have adequate post-acute care beds for some of these chronically ill patients, Cloud said.
Well, companies are capitalizing on the Bills' playoff push. This is from Mike Petro. Local companies and corporate partners of the Buffalo Bills are rallying behind the team as it closes a chapter in its current stadium and begins a playoff push. It is a chance for these businesses to show support for a popular hometown team and amplify the community work they already do, while also cashing in on the team's success on and off the field. There are not many better ways right now for companies in Western New York to market themselves and getting behind the Bills and being loud and letting fans know that they're leaning into it. That's especially true when fans' interest is heightened as a postseason is about to get underway. Buffalo also comes off playing what will be likely the team's final game at Highmark Stadium before the Bills move into their new, more than $2 billion stadium next season. Companies such as Rich Products, Oxford Pennant, and M&T Bank, Tom's Market, and Wegmans are getting in on the action this week. By taking advantage of their connection to the Bills as a team prepares for Sunday's 1 p.m. wildcard round game at Jacksonville, these promotions are a payoff for companies such as M&T that are corporate sponsors, which brings in big money to the Bills, but even companies that aren't directly affiliated with the Bills can capitalize. While these efforts are not all directly moneymakers, the affiliation with the Bills and the reach that it provides can lead to opportunities that are good for their bottom line. When the Bills get into the playoffs, we get excited and we know the community gets excited and we know the team just thrives on it, said Tracy Woodrow, M&T's Chief Administrative Officer and Western New York Regional President. So it's just very natural for us to say, let's do something big. Rich is the original namesake for the Orchard Park Stadium that opened in 1973, partnered with another Buffalo-based company in Oxford, Pennant, to create 2 limited edition products for sale, a felt replica ticket from the very first game played at Rich Stadium in 1973, and a pennant featuring the replica ticket design. The company gathered workers together Thursday for a Bills-themed tailgate and gave them each a pennant. Sales proceeds will benefit Rise of Western New York Community Coffee House, a Buffalo-based coffee shop that focuses on empowering and uplifting those who come through its doors. Not surprisingly, the early demand for the products has been strong, according to the Rich's officials. The Bills and their retail partners have been seeing record sales over the course of this season, and much of it has to do with fans buying items that commemorate the final season at Highmark Stadium. As a Buffalo-based business, we're proud to help honor the legacy of Rich Stadium, be part of a collaboration rooted in the community and shared history, said Dave Horish, the CEO of Oxford Pennant, which has worked with the Bills before to create custom banners. And although Rich's is not an official sponsor of the team anymore, the company is securing the name rights to the new constructed Orchard Park facility when the Bills moved from War Memorial Stadium in Buffalo helped propel the business to become a global brand, and the deal wound up serving as a model for professional sports, with most pro teams now playing in corporately named venues, and those deals collectively being worth more than $1 billion. And M&T held its Believe Together playoff rally on Thursday as Seneca won, and earlier in the week was handing out Bills-themed flags to all Buffalo and Rochester branches. As the official bank of the Bills and founding sponsor of the Bills' new stadium, M&T is heavily involved with sponsoring activities during the regular season and leading up to this season. And after starting as Seneca won, the rally made its way to Westminster Community Charter School and then Golisano Children's Hospital of Buffalo before finishing off in the M&T Bank Southgate branch in West Seneca. And I don't care how many years the Bills have gotten into the playoffs, the run for the Super Bowl gets everyone revved up. We'll keep doing this and hope the Bills keep doing great, Woodrow said. We're always looking for new opportunities to make a difference and to make an impact on how we can use the excitement of the Buffalo Bills to do good. Tops Markets offered an extra $17 in coupons this week, a nod to Buffalo's star quarterback Josh Allen, who wears number 17, and purchases from Thursday to Saturday in preparation for the NFL playoffs. And that includes a $5 off for the Bills game day merchandise, apparel, and accessories, and Wegmans, a corporate sponsor for the Bills. Also help us, the team, by hosting a playoff pep rally on Friday morning for students, staff, and faculty at Charlotte Avenue Elementary School in Hamburg. And the school was selected via a mini mafia contest after nominating a student to win a pep rally for their school. And the students received rally towels, Snapdragon apples, sunglasses, and snacks from Wegmans.
Charming.
So
Go to the quarter-hour break.
yeah.
Go.
All right, you're listening to a reading of today's news on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It is now 17 minutes past the hour, and we move on to editorials. Yeah, still trying to get myself together over here. Shared progress. Bird Island Pier is getting much-needed repairs in the amount of $15.5 million with work scheduled to start in the summer. News staff reporter Mackenzie Schumann outlined the repair work, explaining that the project will focus on roughly 3,000 feet of the pier that has sustained damage by winter storms, ice, and SAICH events. The pier will receive new concrete blocks, grouted stone, and a concrete protective layer. As Lieutenant Colonel Robert Burnham, U.S. Army Corps of Buffalo District Commander, explained in a statement, the Bird Island Pier is a critical component of the Great Lakes navigation system. The Army Corps said the damage has left the navigation channel along Buffalo's shoreline at risk of dangerous waves. Same for the pier's culverts and popular walkways, which have been impacted by damage. Why is this work essential? As the Army Corps stated, the pier is important for protecting ships traveling between Lake Erie, the Buffalo Harbor, the Lower Niagara River, and Erie Canal. It also supports more than $62 million in business revenue and labor income. And 43 North is hiring. More news from 43 North, this time from the latest cohort on the local hiring initiatives. As reported by the News' Mike Petro, at least one of the 5 startups that won $1 million in October has arrived this week and has already begun local hiring spree. Joel Horsford, founder of Rad Employ, a medical jobs marketplace platform from New York City, just hired a recent AI engineering graduate of the University of Buffalo to help build AI-powered applications. Horsford is joined in the hiring initiative by David Dalal of Flow, who, just after winning the competition, posted job openings for mechanical and electrical engineering candidates. The engineering candidates will help set up the company's new manufacturing line in Buffalo.
Aradhita Perez Rampuria, founder of CellSense, wants to hire 2 technicians and science and engineering interns for the startup. CellSense transforms algae and cellulose into compostable beads that eliminate microplastics across the fashion and cosmetic industries. She's already spoken with Buffalo Manufacturing Works and UB. Cozy Care, based in London, plans to build out a team locally. The company focuses on medical devices offering itch relief and an alternative to scratching and infection management for those living with eczema or chronic itch. Ramiro Rabayos, founder of Tuki.ai, which provides immigration services in the corporate landscape, will consider making additional hires like attorneys, paralegals, sales, and marketing after several months of being in Buffalo. It all adds up to local talent in line for well-paying job opportunities. Those, of course, all companies are beneficiaries of the 43 North Startup Prizes. And a small business boost. Speaking of opportunities, there is a program out there that is helping small businesses grow by connecting with large corporations. As the News' Matt Glynn wrote, an example is Junk-Free Skin. It is a small business working with some of the biggest businesses in town, such as Moog, Wegmans, and SUNY Buffalo State University, among others. How? Tom Akers, the co-owner, credits being part of the Buffalo Purchasing Initiative. As Glynn's story outlined, for the big employers in the BPI, the initiative helps them boost local small businesses through purchasing goods and services. For the small businesses, it's a great opportunity to bolster revenues and showcase their capabilities. The BPI started with the Greater Buffalo Racial Equity Roundtable, which was convened in 2015 with a focus on creating an expanded, more inclusive economy. Part of that conversation involved the role of business, spurring the launch of the Business Leaders Task Force. In 2019, the task force formed the BPI, a business cooperative. Member businesses pay into the BPI and dedicate senior leaders to attend the meetings. The BPI's role has expanded to include small businesses from all backgrounds, resulting in a win-win for those trying to get a foothold with larger businesses and larger businesses that could benefit from services and products from a more diverse, smaller base.
Well, now we have the editorial cartoons from Adam Ziglis. We have one. Is it three different panels here? The first one has, as they're labeled on top, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and under the good, they have a picture of Renee Nicole Good, who was a woman who was shot in, I believe it was Minneapolis, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In
Yep.
the second panel, we have, it's got a face of a skull, and it's dressed in an ICE uniform, and that's the bad. On the ugly, we have the president with a very, very long nose that's growing branches. Makes Pinocchio look good. And he's saying she's a terrorist. And is that the DHS? A woman there, she's saying...
That's Kristi Noem.
Kristi Noem, who I understand they're trying to impeach her now. And she's saying she tried to kill him, and she also has a long branched nose, and hers has actually got leaves on it. And then the other one, we have Gary Varvel of Creator Syndicate. And there's a group of donkeys representing Democrats at the Capitol. And they're carrying signs like Maduro's arrest is illegal and no kings but Maduro, and don't bomb narco-terrorists and stop deporting criminals, no ICE, no ballroom. And the one donkey saying, well, sometimes I think opposing Trump on every issue is making us look bad. Take that any way you want.
Mm-hmm. Moving on. One more time. There we go. Moving on to the main editorial for the day. This one from Carl Lubsdorff of the Dallas Morning News. Headline, Trump is embracing gunboat diplomacy on steroids in Venezuela. Well, like his domestic policy that seeks to roll back the civil rights revolution and other 21st century advances, President Trump's imperialist foreign policy is invoking the kind of unilateral approach that marked an earlier era. That's the bottom line on last weekend's capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and Trump's threats to take similar action against other unfriendly Western Hemisphere countries like Colombia and Cuba, and even Greenland. He calls it the Donroe Doctrine, a muscular revision of the 1823 Monroe Doctrine by which the United States asserted its authority over the Western Hemisphere. Noting how past presidents intervened militarily within the region, perhaps it should be entitled Gunboat Diplomacy on Steroids. Along with such moves as last year's bombing of Iran's nuclear sites, it reflects Trump's authoritarian approach to the presidency and shows what he meant when he vowed to abandon the multilateral approach of recent presidents to adopt a unilateral America First policy. It includes not only ignoring any constitutional role for Congress in approving use of American troops abroad, but goes beyond the practice of other recent presidents by not even trying to inform key lawmakers in advance of pending action.
Let's see, where am I? Well, it marks a sharp reversal from Trump's campaign vows to avoid the kinds of foreign entanglements and nation building that he said detracted from the need to concentrate on the nation's domestic problems, ironically, but maybe not coincidentally, at a time when he faces mounting pressures to ease those concerns. Democratic lawmakers said administration officials lied by telling them recently they had no plans to overthrow Maduro, but most Republicans once more stood dutifully in line behind Trump's dramatic middle-of-the-night foray into Venezuela. However, a few GOP MAGA purists like Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie cited the discrepancy with the president's campaign promises. This is the same Washington playbook we are sick and tired of, that doesn't serve the American people but actually serves the big corporations, the banks, and the oil executives, the increasingly outspoken Greene said on NBC's Meet the Press. She said Americans voted in 2024 to stop the government's focus abroad and to make domestic policy be the priority that helps Americans. She also noted that only a small proportion of the drugs entering the United States from the South are coming from Venezuela. The majority of American fentanyl and overdoses and deaths come from Mexico, Greene said. Meanwhile, Trump and other top administration officials are suggesting that they just may be getting started in seeking to rid the Western Hemisphere of unfriendly nations in line with the policy recently enunciated in what they call the Trump's corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. At Saturday's news conference celebrating the operation that captured Maduro, Trump singled out Colombia's President Gustavo Petro for sending drugs to the United States along with Venezuela, but Trump indicated potential U.S. action is not totally about drugs. He, that's Petro, has cocaine mills, he has factories where he makes cocaine, Trump said. They're sending to the United States, so he better watch his ass. The president issued a more veiled warning to Cuba, declaring Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, a very badly failing nation, and we want to help the people. Secretary of State Marco Rubio echoed Trump's words, declaring, if I lived in Havana and I was the government, I'd be concerned. Asking about those comments Sunday on Meet the Press, Rubio said, I'm not going to talk to you about what our future steps are going to be. But he said, I don't think it's any mystery that we're not big fans of the Cuban regime. Trump parried a question on whether the future targets might include Mexico's president, given that the most drug traffic in the United States comes through Mexico.
That was not the intention, he said, noting, this is quoting him here, "We are very good friends with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. She's a good woman, but the cartels control Mexico," he said. "She doesn't control Mexico." Meanwhile, Trump and his top aides continue to talk of the need to annex Greenland, which is owned by Denmark, for vague national security reasons. "Nobody's going to fight the U.S. over the future of Greenland," Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said on CNN. Those kinds of comments prompted Europe's top leaders to issue a stern statement Tuesday, reiterating that any decision about Greenland's future is for Denmark and Greenland and them only to decide. Beyond any future U.S. actions, a prominent analyst noted that Trump's legitimization of moves against unfriendly Western Hemisphere leaders could have broader implications by encouraging similar moves by other autocratic world leaders in regions they consider their spheres of influence. Speaking Saturday on CNN, New York Times Washington correspondent David Sanger said it could enable Russian leader Vladimir Putin to justify similar action against Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky or China's Xi Jinping to do so against the leaders of Taiwan. Meanwhile, the Trump administration may have its hands full in dealing with the situation in Venezuela. Maduro's top lieutenants seem so far to still be in control, suggesting Trump may need to employ more gunboats to enforce his confident but premature words that we're in charge here.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. And the time now is 1:30, and we will move on to My View, which I hope is more pleasant.
Usually.
Ella Green, a junior at Williamsville South High School, is fine with New York's cell phone ban, and she writes an article, Show Students How to Coexist with Tech. It was Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. A classroom full of teenagers heard for the 1,000th time that phones would be banned at schools next year. We all knew why, but none of us knew how schools would change. Less than a year later, we all saw what the governor's distraction-free school zone policy truly meant. It meant being barked at in the cafeteria, fewer distractions, jumping through hoops just to complete assignments, as well as casual conversations with friends in between classes. Despite the many challenges this policy has created, it was a correct decision. Almost every student I've talked to has agreed that people are more focused in class without their phones. Classes are running smoother and there's less worry about remembering each teacher's cell phone policy. But there needs to be more leniency, especially at the high school level. On more than one occasion, people have come storming into my math class mad that they now had to do more work at home because the cafeteria monitor wouldn't let them use their Chromebook. But according to this policy, this is perfectly fine. In this case, a policy meant to enhance student learning is actually hindering it. A truly effective phone policy would allow students to utilize school-provided Chromebooks, which block most non-academic websites anyway, during study halls without teachers having to monitor them. We've used laptops for years. It's time to allow high school students some autonomy over their internet usage. We also need to grow socially, and this policy is allowed to do just that. I observed more conversation and connection between students this year, and I found myself talking to friends more this year than I ever have. We clearly needed our phones taken away, but we also need to learn how to use technology responsibly. Generation Z is one of the first to grow up with cell phones, and some of us getting them as early as elementary school. They've become an integral part of our lives, and we're learning to live without them now. But what happens when we grow up? We don't magically become responsible once we graduate. We have to learn that responsibility. Many upperclassmen have, but middle schoolers and younger who have never self-managed their phone use may not. This policy needs to include education on how to make sure your phone doesn't become an addiction. And that could look like simply adding a healthy cell phone use unit to the health classes that are already required. The next generation needs to learn how to coexist with technology, not just have it regulated for them. Still, regulation is a superb first step. Acknowledging the adverse effects of social media is important. Governor Kathy Hochul has made positive changes, but they cannot end with this policy. Students deserve to be set up for success, and that starts with letting them learn and grow. The next time I have a digital assignment, I hope I can work on it without worrying that I'm violating a law meant to help me, because we students are trying to help ourselves as much as adults are trying to help us. So let us help ourselves by teaching us to coexist with technology. Technology doesn't stay in the classroom. It follows us into the future. And that's from Ella Green, a junior from Williamsville South High School. A very good article.
I'm impressed.
Very impressed.
She said the same thing that I've heard from a teacher friend of mine that goes to the same church I do. He teaches in one of the Williamsville schools. I can't remember which one, but he teaches physics, and he says he's seen a lot more conversation amongst students between and after classes, end of the school day, and so forth, since they've taken their cell phones away. Students are liking it.
Yeah, my sister is a student aide, a teacher aide, and she said that her students had to learn how to read analog clocks. They didn't know how to do that.
and forget cursive. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Moving to another voice, this one from John Diebold, a retired professional engineer. For nearly 6 decades, the Kensington Expressway has cut through Buffalo's east side, dividing neighborhoods, erasing Humboldt Parkway, and leaving behind a legacy of inequity. As the New York State Department of Transportation embarks on a full environmental impact study, we have a rare opportunity to do more than reconfigure lanes of traffic. We can finally begin to mitigate the damage this highway has caused. This project, at its core, is a matter of public health, housing, social equity, and environmental justice. Residents along the Kensington have endured higher rates of asthma and other health disparities linked to pollution and poor access to care. Transportation planning must integrate public health priorities, ensuring that the rebuilt corridor contributes to healthier lives rather than perpetuating harm. Restoring green corridors and recreational spaces is necessary but not sufficient to reconnect people and honor Frederick Law Olmsted's vision for Buffalo. Infrastructure alone cannot heal the wounds of division. Enhanced social services, child care centers, senior programs, job training hubs must be part of the plan. The Kensington's outdated geometry and poor access ramps have long plagued the city. Hazards abound, narrow shoulders that leave little room for breakdowns, high rates of speed, motorcycles weaving in and out. This is the moment to challenge those flaws. Modern safety and accessibility standards must guide improvements. Alternatives that reduce traffic burdens while reconnecting neighborhoods should be seriously considered. Buffalo's parkways are more than roads. They are cultural assets that define the city's character. The removal of Humboldt Parkway was a profound loss. As we reimagine the Kensington, we must keep the spirit of restoration alive by designing infrastructure that prioritizes connection over division. We must also accept the inevitability that the environmental impact study could conclude that the highway must remain. Whether the expressway is capped, redesigned, or left in place, the guiding principle must be to help heal the damage it has caused. Our region has a chance to turn a symbol of Buffalo's division into a corridor of renewal. We cannot afford to let that chance slip away. Rich John Diebold, a retired professional engineer and infrastructure advocate. Those are his thoughts.
Head on to Buffalo next, from Tim Grand to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. How AI is reshaping real estate business. From Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania, Coldwell banker agent Georgie Schmeigel used to spend hours digging through spreadsheets and old inquiry lists trying to figure out who might be interested in a new listing. Now she simply asks her artificial intelligence software, who's looking for a $250,000 house in a given Pittsburgh suburb, neighborhood or suburb? And it pops out all these people's names and emails, she said. We invite them to look at our listings and go to our open houses. Schmeigel said a real estate coach told her a year ago to start small with AI, use it to write up ads or clean up listing descriptions and other small tasks. But with help from her 2 tech-savvy sons, she went further. She's trained her AI tools to power a big portion of her business, from mining prospects to drafting marketing materials and staying in touch with clients. The payoff has been real. The team Schmeigel Leeds has been on track to hit the $100 million mark in sales this year, about $10 million more than in 2024, and she credits AI for helping her get there. She's not alone. Across the country, real estate agents are weaving AI into almost every aspect of the job, and the technology is reshaping the industry faster than many expected. The use of AI in real estate has evolved into a broad range of tools that can automate marketing, analyze buyer behavior, generate ads and social media posts, and even draft agreements that once required an attorney. Agents are doing their own marketing, are finding that they can cut certain professional services from their budgets. We don't need our graphic designer anymore, which is unfortunate, Smigel said. We can put an ad into AI and ask it to make a special size, ask it to look like this, give it a theme, and AI spits it out for us. Big brokerages embraced AI early and have not looked back. Howard Hanna Real Estate has been using AI in one form or another for years, said Dennis Sestra Jr., president of the company's Pennsylvania market. We updated the search function on our website a year ago with enhanced AI capabilities, he said. Also, we'll be rolling out here fairly quickly for our agents true automation when it comes to marketing. It seems that every brokerage, property manager, and agent is either building or buying their own system, each one tailored to whatever task or problem they're trying to solve. For Dustin Nulf, owner of Nulf Management Services in Washington's Landing in Pittsburgh, AI has opened the door to sweeping changes in how he runs and grows his business. When his property management company recently acquired 2 other management firms, he didn't call an attorney to prepare their sales agreement. He turned to ChatGPT. I used ChatGPT to write the sales agreement for the transaction instead of paying an attorney over $1,000 and waiting more than a month to get a sales agreement drawn up, Mr. Null said. AI now touches nearly every operational corner of Mr. Null's business. His maintenance director uses it to turn rough property walkthrough notes into organized room-by-room bullet points that can be converted into renovation bids. His maintenance routing system uses AI to troubleshoot tenant issues via text before assigning the ticket to the right technician, a process that used to eat hours of staff time.
Well, Michael Liedtke of the Associated Press reports that Google is adding AI features to Gmail. More artificial intelligence is being implanted into Gmail as Google tries to turn the world's most popular email service into a personal assistant that can improve writing, summarize far-flung information buried in inboxes, and deliver daily to-do lists. The new AI features announced yesterday could herald a pivotal moment for Gmail, a service that transformed email when it was introduced nearly 22 years ago. Since then, Gmail has amassed more than 3 billion users to become nearly as ubiquitous as Google's search engine. Gmail's new AI option will only be available in English within the United States for starters. But the company is promising to expand the technology to other countries and other languages as the year unfolds. The most broadly available tool will be a Help Me Write option designed to learn a user's writing style so it can personalize emails and make real-time suggestions on how to burnish the message. Maybe it could even help Mr. Liedtke write the article with only in the right place, unlike the last paragraph. Oh well. Google is also offering subscribers who pay for its Pro and Ultra services access to technology that mirrors the AI overviews that's been built into its search engine since 2023. The expansion will enable subscribers pose conversational questions in Gmail's search bar to get instant answers about information they are trying to retrieve from their inboxes. In what could turn into another revolutionary step, AI Inbox is also being rolled out to a subset of trusted testers in the U.S. When it's turned on, the function will sift through inboxes and suggest to-do lists and topics that users might want to explore. This is us delivering on Gmail proactively having your back, said Blake Barnes, a Google Vice President of Product. All the new technology is tied to Google's latest AI model, Gemini 3, which was unleashed into its search engine late last year. The upgrade, designed to turn Google Search into a thought partner, has been so well received that it prompted OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, whose company makes the popular ChatGPT chatbot, to issue a code red following its release. But thrusting more AI into Gmail poses potential risks for Google, especially if the technology malfunctions and presents misleading information or crafts emails that get users into trouble, even though people are able to proofread the messages or turn off the features at any time.
I got to find out how to turn some of that stuff off. It gets in my way.
I'm still working on trying to get my new computer to not do some of the stuff that it does, and my other computer didn't.
Oh, yeah, it's a nightmare. Well, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. We have Faye Morith, 89 years old. Carlos E. Gonzalez Angulo, MD, is 70. Logel Donna Jean, née Morlock, at age 66. Miller Sherry Colleen, née Martin. We don't have much information on her. Polano Carmelo, also known as Mel, was 101 years old. And Reiner John, 88 years old. And Tate Robert Bobby. And again, if you need any information on these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. And we have two obituaries of note here. An Sung-ki, 74, the nation's actor of South Korea. An Sung-ki, one of South Korea's cinema's biggest stars, whose prolific 60-year career and positive, gentle public image earned him the nickname the nation's actor, died Monday. He was 74. An, who had blood cancer for years, died at Seoul's Sunchunhyang University Hospital. His agency, the Artist Company, and hospital officials said, "We feel deep sorrow at the sudden sad news. Pray for the eternal rest of the deceased and offer our heartfelt condolences to his bereaved family members," the Artist Company said in a statement. President Lee Jae-myung issued a condolence message saying that An provided many people with comfort, joy, and time for reflection. "I already miss his warm smile and gentle voice," Lee wrote on Facebook. Born on December 31st of 1950 to a filmmaker in southeastern city of Daegu in 1952, An made his debut as a child actor in the movie The Twilight Train in 1957, and he subsequently appeared in about 70 movies as a child actor before he left the film industry to live an ordinary life. And An had collected dozens of trophies and major movie awards in South Korea, including winning the Grand Bell Awards for Best Actor 5 times, an achievement no other South Korean actor has matched. He built up an image as a humble, trustworthy, and family-oriented celebrity who avoided major scandals and maintained a quiet, stable personal life. Past public surveys chose An as South Korea's most beloved actor and deserving of the nickname the nation's actor. He was also known for his reluctance to do love scenes. He said he was too shy to act romantic scenes and sometimes asked directors to skip steamy scenes if they were only meant to add spice to movies. "I don't do well acting like looking at someone who I don't love with loving eyes and kissing really romantically. I feel shy and can't express such emotions well," An said in an interview with the Shindoga magazine in 2007. "Simply, I'm clumsy on that, so I couldn't star in such a movie a lot, but ultimately that was the right choice for me." An is survived by his wife and their 2 sons. And then Bela Tar, 70, an award-winning Hungarian filmmaker. The celebrated Hungarian filmmaker Bela Tar, director of such works as Satanango and The Turin Horse, and the recipient of numerous awards for his long and often darkly comic movies, died Tuesday. He was 70. During a career spanning decades, Tar wrote and directed 9 feature films, starting with his debut, Family Nest, in 1979, and ending in 2011 with The Turin Horse, which won the Silver Bear Jury Grand Prize at the Berlin International Film Festival that year. Tar frequently collaborated with Hungarian author Laszlo Krasnohorsky, who last year won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Taras films, some of which were adaptations of Krasnohorsky's films, such as Tango and Werkmeister Harmonies, have been awarded prizes at festivals around Europe and Asia, and he received honorary professorships at universities in China. He was born on July 21st of 1955 in southern Hungarian city of Pécs, but lived most of his life in the capital at Budapest. His unique style made his work a major influence on art house cinema, including American filmmakers Gus Van Sant and Jim Jarmusch, who have praised his vision. He worked closely with his editor and principal collaborator, Agnes Hranicki, for decades, and she edited all of his movies, starting with The Outsider in 1981. At times, he was politically outspoken and criticized nationalism and populist politicians such as Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, as well as President Trump and France's far-right leader, Marine Le Pen. He was also critical of Hungary's cultural policies under Orban and helped sponsor a group of students at the University of Theatre and Film Arts in Budapest who would occupy their campus in protest of the government measures in 2020. And following the release of his final feature film, The Turin Horse, in 2011, he moved to the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo, where he founded a film academy known as Film Factory, and from there he produced numerous films by the academy students and split his time between Sarajevo and Budapest. And if you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
Turning now to the Royal Stars. They have given up telling us who's writing this. Oh, here it is. It's a dark band with okay, so it's still Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Friday, January 9th. You have sharp analytical skills and keen powers of perception. You're determined and committed to whatever you choose. This is a slower-paced year. It's okay to rest. Good news to me. For Aries, today you're restless to do something that's ambitious or noteworthy. You would love to impress bosses, parents, and people in authority with your ideas and abilities. Tonight, cooperate. Taurus, sometimes we have heroic Walter Mitty daydreams about exploring exciting adventures. Today, this is actually possible for you. Tonight, get organized. For Gemini, disputes about shared property, inheritances, taxes, and insurance issues might arise today. If they do, they'll be intense and in your face. Tonight, socialize. Okay. Cancer, you might encounter someone today who inspires you with their energy. They might arouse your ambition, stimulate your confidence, and make you want to do something. Tonight, relax. Leo, you'll be productive today because the sun is lined up with Mars in the part of your chart that makes you want to get things done. Tonight, interesting discussion. Virgo, you have an amazing burst of energy today that you can use for creative expression and anything to do with the performing arts, writing, music, you name it. Tonight, take care of what you own. Libra, you are affected by your immediate environment and you want your home to look attractive. Sometimes it's messy and out of control, but you wish it looked nice. Tonight, you're strong. Scorpio, your communication skills are amazing today, which is good news for those of you in sales, marketing, teaching, acting, or writing. Tonight, enjoy solitude. Sagittarius, this is a tricky day because in one way you're willing to bust your buns to boost your income, especially if it's a new idea or you want to initiate a new project. Tonight, be friendly. Capricorn, today the sun is lined up with fiery Mars in your sign, making you feel vigorous. Tonight, you're admired. Aquarius, you might feel restless today because you have lots of energy building up within you, and you might not be sure where or how to channel it. This year, you can improve your existing job or get a better one. Tonight, learn something new. And finally, the Pisces, today you might express a burst of energy in a creative way in the arts or the entertainment world or the hospitality industry. You're excited about an idea. Tonight, check your finances. Well, I don't know. That advice was kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
Whatever she said to do tonight seemed to conflict with what was going on in their lives for many of the signs.
Well, do what you want.
I think of that as just entertainment. On this date in history, in 1861, Mississippi became the second state to secede from the Union. The same day, the Star of the West, a merchant vessel bringing reinforcements and supplies to federal troops at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, retreated because of artillery fire. In 1916, the World War I Battle of Gallipoli ended with an Ottoman Empire victory as Allied forces withdrew. In 1945, during World War II, American forces began landing on the shores of Lingayen Gulf in the Philippines as the Battle of Luzon got underway, resulting in an Allied victory over Imperial Japanese forces. In 2007, Apple CEO Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone at the Macworld conference in San Francisco. In 2018, downpours sent mud and boulders roaring down Southern California hillsides that had been stripped of vegetation by wildfire. More than 20 people died and hundreds of homes were damaged or destroyed. And in 2022, 17 people died after a fire was sparked by a malfunctioning space heater at an apartment building in the New York City borough of the Bronx.
Oh, dear.
Well, that's today in history.
From Buffalo Next, we have an article, 6 key trends car shoppers should know about in 2026. If you're planning to buy a car in 2026, you're stepping into one of the most unusual markets the auto industry has seen in years. Prices are high, incentives are shifting, and the gap between what different buyers can afford is widening. Analysts from Cox Automotive and Edmunds say this year will bring more change and more pressures for shoppers, and here's what you need to know before you start browsing. Affordability is a big challenge. Really. New and used cars alike will remain expensive in 2026. Analysts expect prices to stay high and stable even as consumer confidence softens. The average transaction price for a new car is hovering near $50,000, and finance costs have more than doubled as a share of household income since the COVID-19 pandemic.
You need to edit this pretty severely here. We only got a minute and a half.
Okay. And then EV incentives are gone. The federal tax credit for EV purchases expires at the end of September, and 2026 will be the first full year without it. New car sales are expected to dip. After a surprisingly strong 2025, analysts are expecting new vehicle sales to cool. Cox Automotive forecast for 2026 sales at around 15.8 million, which is a 2.4% drop. And the market has split into haves and have-nots. The K-shaped economy in which wealthier households thrive while others struggle is clearly showing up in car buying. The high-income shoppers still enjoying plenty of choice. And interest rates are easing a bit. There is one bright spot. Borrowing costs are starting to come down. Average APR on a loan for a new vehicle dipped to 6.6% in November, the lowest point since 2025. And policy changes could shake up pricing. Tariffs, trade agreements, and regulatory shifts are creating uncertainty for automakers and for shoppers. The renegotiation of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement and new tariffs on imported vehicles and parts could raise production costs. Well, you're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today. That's Friday, January 9th of 2026 on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Don Williams
and J.J. Patek.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.
And we're back.
Yep.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek.
and Don Williams. Matt Glynn reports that the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership is calling for a 10-year delay in the implementation of the state's climate law.
Well,
The fact of the matter is, we're not on pace to hit many of those targets, said Josh Veronica, the partnership's Director of Government Affairs. We think it's important for the state to acknowledge that and formally recalibrate those targets, rather than getting to 2030 and throwing our hands up and saying, sorry, we couldn't get there, he said. The partnership included its stance about the climate law in its newly released advocacy agenda. Each year, the region's largest business group highlights private sector priorities at different levels of government. The climate law, officially called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, was signed in 2019 by then-Governor Andrew Cuomo. The law calls for 70% of the state's electricity to come from renewable sources by 2030, among other energy-related targets. A 10-year delay would provide ample time to build more transmission infrastructure, bolster renewable energy sources, and start retrofitting buildings, Veronica said. A number of other business advocacy groups around the state are aligning around a push for a decade-long delay, said Grant Loomis, the partnership's president and chief operating officer. The longer timeline would give businesses greater certainty about preparing for changes to go into effect, he said. Environmental groups have hailed the climate law's focus on combating climate change and ramping up reliance on renewables such as wind and solar power. They have urged Hochul to stay the course with the law's targets for cutting harmful emissions. Business groups favor an all-of-the-above approach that keeps natural gas in the energy mix alongside renewables. Amid the debate, the state's power grid is facing challenges to meet rising demand for electricity for manufacturing facilities, data centers, and electric vehicles. The Trump administration has rolled back federal support for renewable energy projects, creating obstacles for those projects to move forward. Veronica said the targets in the state's climate law are significant because they influence policy decisions that are made to meet those targets. Late last year, Governor Kathy Hochul paused implementation of the All-Electric Buildings Act, which would have barred natural gas hookups in newly built homes and newly built buildings with fewer than 7 stories. The partnership's advocacy agenda also calls for repealing authorization of the state's Cap and Invest program. That program would require emissions sources like manufacturers, power plants, and fuel companies to pay money for going over their emissions limits. Some other priorities in the partnership's advocacy agenda. Free trade in Canada. The business group calls for pursuing a free trade policy, including a robust U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement negotiation that maximizes export opportunities for American manufacturers and reduces supply chain costs. The business group also supports improving relations with Canadian neighbors who comprise a significant portion of Buffalo Niagara's hospitality, tourism, entertainment, restaurant, and retail customers. The Buffalo Niagara region has seen a sharp drop-off in visitors from Canada amid President Trump's rhetoric about Canada and tariffs the United States has imposed on Canada. That drop-off has been felt by retailers, restaurants, entertainment venues, and cultural institutions. The partnership also calls for aligning immigration policy to welcome top talent from across the globe. And semiconductors. The business group is calling for continued investments to cultivate upstate New York's semiconductor sector. Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, through a joint tech hub effort, are collaborating on bolstering the supply chain, training workers, and promoting innovation in the sector. The tech hub is backed by $48 million in federal and state funds. At the federal level, the partnership is calling for Congress to extend the Advanced Manufacturing Investment Tax Credit, which is set to expire at the end of the year. It would only incentivize you to build a semiconductor manufacturing plant if you broke ground at some point this year, Veronica said. On the AI front, the partnership supports unified oversight regulations for AI across the country instead of a patchwork of state-by-state regulations, Loomis said.
And
Let's see how that works.
Yeah, really. From Ben Sugimoto, Buffalo School Board is excited to get to work. As Stephen Wright took the oath of office to become the new Buffalo School Board member earlier this week, he and his 3-year-old son celebrated a moment of triumph. Wright, the first student member of the board in 2012, came up short in his quest for a hotly contested at-large board seat 2 years later. He remembers the Buffalo News editorial board's endorsement article, which did not fall in his favor, but concluded with encouraging words: with a little more seasoning, Stephen Wright could be a champion. I never thought I would want to do that again, Wright said shortly after taking his seat at the board table with the organizational meeting at the Buffalo Academy for Visual and Performing Arts. But the opportunity presented itself. The community just got behind me. Now we're here. I'm just excited to get to work today. Wright's son, Valentino, perched on his father's shoulders at the beginning of the oath. He knew the moment was special, too, his father said, choosing to come to the ceremony despite battling a double ear infection. Wright, Talia Rodriguez, Louis Mookie Hawkins, and Eric T. Bowen officially began their first terms as district representatives on the board. Also sworn in were Kathy Evans Brown, elected in November to a third term, and Cindy McEachin, who begins her second 3-year term. Board members are compensated $28,000 per year. Only Rodriguez's race in the West District was contested. The November election demonstrated muted interest in the board positions, despite lower barriers for entry. The influx of new energy was not lost on the board's additions, especially considering how the reshaped board dovetails with the tenure of new Superintendent Pascal Mubenga, who approached his 5th month in office. I think it would be powerful if we can all get together, Wright said. Wright takes over for Sharon Belton Cotman as Ferry District Representative, while Hawkins fills the seat of Paulette Woods in the Central District, and Bowen succeeds Terry Shuda in the Park District. Rodriguez defeated the incumbent Jennifer McCosey and challenger Mustafa Abdo in the West District. Rodriguez on Monday received applause from the audience after repeating the oath in Spanish, a tribute to her Latina background and to the substantial Hispanic population in her district. The newcomers quickly became involved in official action, too, voting Evans Brown as board president and Adriana Zulik and Juanita Everhart as vice presidents. Everhart was elected with a unanimous vote, while Evans Brown and Zulik secured the leadership roles by an 8-1 margin, with Larry Scott the lone dissenter. Evans Brown was surrounded by more than 25 people, including some from her employer, Buffalo Urban League, as she took her oath as president for the 2nd straight year. That's what a village looks like, shouted someone from the crowd. Monday's vote was the first act of what is expected to be a busy winter and spring for the board, featuring short and long-term financial challenges, implementation of Mubenga's first strategic plan, and the release of the results of an investigation into potential district cover-ups. Wright, a native of the East Side and presently a community school navigator for Say Yes Buffalo, noted the dysfunction on the board during his service as a student at Emerson School of Hospitality about 15 years ago. He wants to avoid that during his tenure. We have people with kids, Wright said. Mookie has a child. Telly has a child. I have 2 children and I have a niece, so we come in with a new approach. We sat down and we talked. We said, listen, we don't want to argue and we don't want to fight. We want to put the children first. About 2 months before he officially took his board seat, Wright was nominated by Belton Cotman to serve on the school closure committee, which recommended the 2 district schools to close ahead of the 2026 to 2027 school year. Buffalo Schools ultimately pivoted away from its choice to close schools, but the committee experience was eye-opening for Wright. Sparse attendance of a community meeting to receive feedback about the closure process came as a surprise. Wright said Monday he hopes to identify ways to spark greater participation, particularly from parents. Ms. Cotman did a great job for the last 15 years, Wright said. A lot of people love her. Some people don't like her because she's bold and she's fierce, but it's a new day. I'm a new representative for Ferry. Bowen, a native of South Buffalo, was the only newcomer on the board to previously win an election for public office. In 2018, Bowen defeated Patrick Burke to win the seat in the Assembly District 142, which has been held by Mickey Kearns until he resigned to become Erie County Clerk, prompting a special election. Bowen led the district, which included South Buffalo, Lackawanna, West Seneca, and Orchard Park, for about 7 months before coming up short in the ensuing November election to Burke. The new board member is an experienced educator, too, in addition to his political experience. Bowen has worked as a teacher for 13 years, including a special education teacher in Buffalo Public Schools and coached track and cross country for schools such as Bishop Timon and Mount Mercy. He said he's already heard from special education teachers about the crisis they face in the district. Knowing what the kids need, listening to teachers, and listening to parents is my biggest strength, Bowen said. Because if we don't listen to them, what are we doing here? Bowen was backed to run by Shuda, his board predecessor, who only served one term after more than a decade as principal at South Park High School. Bowen said he respects her legacy. I'll be consulting Terry, Bowen said. I'm my own person, but she's a friend from the neighborhood who I've known for a very long time. I know her family, and she's a wonderful person.
She is. I know her family, too. Moving on. We have an article here from Aaron Besker. A murder suspect who 2 years ago kidnapped an elderly couple and was the subject of a manhunt after breaking out of Pennsylvania jail has admitted that he killed his ex-girlfriend, according to Chautauqua County prosecutors. Michael C. Burham, age 37, pleaded guilty Tuesday to first-degree murder in Chautauqua County Court for the fatal shooting of Kala Hodgkin, the Chautauqua County District Attorney's Office said in a news release. Sentencing scheduled for March 2nd. Burham broke in and fatally shot Hodgkin, age 34, in her home at about 4:20 a.m. on May 11, 2023, as she slept, and while her 3 children were upstairs. Before she was killed, Hodgkin accused Burham of rape, according to prosecutors. The guilty plea, which carries an expected sentence of 25 years to life in prison, came a week before jury selection was to begin in Burham's murder trial. A guilty plea for murder first and avoid putting the family through a lengthy trial is a win, Jamestown Police Lieutenant Adam McKinley said in a statement. Everybody involved did a thorough investigation which led to the guilty plea. We hope Michael Burham spends the rest of his life in prison for his actions. We hope so, too.
From Robert Gavin. Setting the cost of child care, Hochul aims to expand pre-K. Governor Kathy Hochul on Thursday promised that every child under 5 in the state will be eligible for affordable child care by 2028 through an expansion of pre-kindergarten programs. The cost of child care is too damn high, Hochul said in an announcement from the YMCA in Brooklyn, where she was joined by recently elected New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani and state and city elected officials. The Buffalo-born governor explained that while the state has a universal pre-K program in place for the decade, counties outside New York City have not been implementing it. To address this problem, the state will invest $470 million, Hochul said. To support the administration of universal pre-K across our towns and our cities and deliver on guarantee that I am making today, the universal pre-K will be available for every single 4-year-old across New York by 2028. 2 years from now, Hochul said to Cheers, because every child deserves this, the same opportunities. Hochul, who faces re-election this year, plans to, among other proposals, add a pilot program outside New York City to create a web of community-based daycare centers to start this year to provide affordable daycare for newborn babies to 3-year-olds. Add $1.2 billion to the state's Child Care Assistance Program, or CCCAP, which gives vouchers to low-income families in need of child care. The total amount will be more than $3 billion. Create a new Office of Child Care and Early Education, which will be expected to lead the implementation of child care. Propose free child care for 2-year-olds in New York City, a plan called 2Care, championed by Mamdani. Hochul's proposal comes as the Trump administration on Tuesday froze around $10 billion in federal funding for child care and family assistance programs to 5 Democratic-led states, including New York, due to allegations of widespread fraud in Minnesota social service centers. Earlier Thursday, during an appearance on MS Now's Morning Joe program, Hochul said the money is reimbursement for child care for some 200,000 children in New York City. She said the freeze would not impact the plans she outlined Thursday. Hochul said Trump was at war with kids and penalizing the Democratic states, but it could backfire for the Republican president. Hochul said the programs are administered by counties which 47 are run by Republicans. So now I have a Republican county executive represented by Republican members of Congress who are also getting screwed in the process, Hochul said. Asked why Trump administration will wage war on children, Hochul replied, because they're stupid. Senate Minority Leader Robert Ortt, a Republican from North Tonawanda, sent a statement that his conference recognized the accessibility, quality, and affordable child care was important, but did not endorse Hochul's plans. I'm in the wrong page here. It couldn't be solved by throwing more taxpayer dollars at it without addressing the underlying issues that have exacerbated the problem. Staffing shortages, lack of infrastructure, and the high cost of doing business, Ortt said. And in light of recent events in Minnesota, there must be safeguards in place to ensure the funding is actually going where it needs to go. Hochul has said that when she was a young mother, she needed to leave her position as an attorney for then U.S. Senator Dan Moynihan at the time when her highest career aspiration to care for her son. If I had to make a choice I never thought I would do, to walk away from that dream job and become a full-time mom because it costs too much for child care for me to walk out that door in the morning, Hochul said. So I had put my dreams on hold. To be honest with you, I never knew if they'd get back on track. Decades later, as her son is now father to a young child, the same problem exists for families across the state, she said. In a news release Thursday, the governor's office said that while 4-year-olds in parts of the state have long had access to the programs, dozens of school districts are without it. Under the new plan, the state will fund additional pre-K seats and increase money for existing seats, bringing them up to the greater of $10,000 or the applicable school district's current selected foundation aid per pupil, so that districts have what they need to create high-quality pre-K, the release said. This combination reflects a commitment of roughly $500 million and will ensure that every child in New York State enters kindergarten ready to learn, the release said. So, hopefully it'll help.
Hopefully. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service at 17 minutes past the hour. It's time to turn to sports.
Yay.
Jay Skursky says pressure is real. The hot takes have already started. Of all the playoff games this weekend, only one team is not allowed to lose. Buffalo. Colin Cowherd said this week on his national radio show. In Buffalo, it can be argued that the window is already closed on the Bills and that the supreme skills and abilities of quarterback Josh Allen have created the impression that it remains open. An early, ugly exit against a Jaguars team that is, frankly, better than the Bills could be the thing that prompts owner Terry Pegula to make a change, Mike Florio wrote at Pro Football Talk. This is the reality for the Buffalo Bills. This is the reality for head coach Sean McDermott. With sustained success comes expectations. With expectations comes pressure. It can be argued, right or wrong, that no team in the NFL's 14-team playoff field faces more pressure than the Bills, despite being the number 6 seed in the AFC. With elite quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson watching from home, the thinking goes that the window has never been more open for Allen and the Bills to finally chase down that elusive first Super Bowl title. The hot take artists at BetMGM cooked up a doozy, opining that Josh Allen, you have no more excuses on their social media account at the start of this week. That, of course, is nothing more than rage bait. It ignores the fact that Allen has not been the reason for most of the Bills' playoff failures during his time in Buffalo.
Amen.
It does not speak to a narrative that exists, though. With every year of Allen's prime that comes and goes without a Super Bowl, the urgency to change that ratchets up. It is true that the AFC is wide open this season. This is the first time since 1998 that the AFC playoff field didn't include Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Mahomes. Allen's resume is missing the type of postseason success that trio enjoyed, even if he wanted nothing to do with looking ahead this week. We're taking it one game at a time, he said. We're not focused on what's happened in the past. We're a completely different team than we were last year and the year before that and so on. Our job is to play the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1 o'clock on Sunday, and that's what we're going to do. Left tackle Deion Dawkins, who has been a part of all 8 playoff appearances for the Bills under McDermott, took it a step further, denying that team faced any sort of added pressure. Aren't we the 6th seed? Nobody's talking about the Buffalo Bills, he said. All the stress is not on our shoulders. The mindset is to win no matter what. We play to be in the dance. We're dancing. Now we just need to be prom king and queen at the end. Everybody's record is 0-0. I like our team against anybody. The pressure has not been, or more so, I would say the anxiety is not through the roof. We respect every team that's in the tournament. It's just live to that next day, man. The guys are cool. The guys are calm. I like where the Buffalo Bills are at. With all due respect to Dawkins, he must not be listening if he thinks nobody is talking about the Bills. Turn on any of the numerous cable sports talk shows, and the talking heads can't stop talking about the Bills, how they have to get it done this year or else. It's expected that the team would do everything in its power to block out that sort of talk. We're really focused on this game, and today, quite honestly, McDermott said Saturday, being present today, improving where we need to improve, making sure we've got the right game plan, getting the first chance for the players to come out and execute today, and see where we go from there. McDermott's answer is the right one. The second he starts changing things or externally showing signs that he is feeling any sort of pressure, even if it is inside him, is the moment his team gets tight. This is going to sound like coach speak. It's not. It's process, McDermott said. You won't get the result you want if you don't hone in on what's right in front of you. That the Bills are heading to Jacksonville for their playoff opener invites natural comparison to the 2017 season, when the Bills ended their 17-year playoff drought with a win over the Miami Dolphins in the final week of the regular season, and a big assist from Andy Dalton's Cincinnati Bengals, who beat the Baltimore Ravens to clinch a spot for Buffalo. The celebrations that ensued in Buffalo, South Florida, and beyond are fondly remembered to this day. At that point in time, simply making the playoffs was a big deal. Today, however, the expectations are different and far greater. I'm not trying to be generic, but there's pressure every week, defensive coordinator Bobby Babich said. Babich has been a member of 3 different NFL organizations, and each one has been at different points of their journey toward contender status. His first stop was in Carolina, right before the Panthers started a 3-year playoff run that included a trip to the Super Bowl. He then went to Cleveland, where the Browns did what they usually do, which is a lot of losing. Babich then joined McDermott in Buffalo starting the 2017 season. Whether you want to call it pressure, whether you want to call it expectation, no matter what you want to call it, if you want to win and you want winners, well then, that's always going to be the case, he said, slamming his fist on the table to punctuate his point. It just comes with the territory of the expectation, whether you want to call it pressure or whatever it is. You want to be a sustainable winner. You want to be a consistent winner. Well, then, the pressure's always on you, and that's week to week. Babich called the Bills' expectations a privilege based on what they've done recently. That's entirely fair. It speaks to the winning culture that the current front office and coaching staff has built that Cowherd could say that the Bills are the only team not allowed to lose this weekend with a straight face. Sunday does not figure to be easy. The Jaguars are a darn good team, entering the playoffs on an 8-game win streak. Still, the Bills enter as a 1.5-point favorites, which, if there was any other team, might seem hard to fathom. Clearly, oddsmakers respect what Allen has accomplished both this season and in previous playoff appearances. Getting to this point, however, has not been an easy road for the 2025 Bills. Far too often, they've displayed inconsistency, whether on offense, defense, or special teams. To beat Jacksonville, they will need to find consistency. This might not come as any ground-breaking analysis, but they will simply have to play good, solid, complementary football. Do that for 60 minutes, and the Bills can beat anybody in the playoffs. They can also lose to anybody if they don't. I think we've been forced into a lot of different scenarios this year and found ourselves out of most of them, Allen said. There's some that obviously we've learned from and taken that knowledge that we've gained throughout the season into the playoffs. Having guys that have been around the playoffs regularly on a team, I think it does pay dividends. Whatever we can do to make one more play and score one more point than our opponent, that's our goal. What happens if that doesn't happen? Only a couple people know that answer right now. One would be Pegula. General Manager Brandon Beane and McDermott separately report directly to Pegula, so he has final say on their futures. Another would be McDermott, who has the final say on his coaching staff. If the Bills lose, would he consider changes there? For now, it remains to be seen whether those questions will even need to be asked. A win would prevent them. A loss would invite them.
Yeah. Well, for Christmas, I got a T-shirt, and on the front of it, there's a big red buffalo, and it says, "Just one before I die."
I've seen that one around.
Well, on to the Sabres from Mike Harrington. Benson finds lots of winning ways with Sabres. There are lots of reasons the Buffalo Sabres have done a lot of winning lately. Zach Benson's presence in the lineup has definitely helped. The third-year winger has only 4 goals in 28 games, but he's tough on the forecheck and has strong passing skills. The numbers bear out Benson's impact. Heading into Thursday's game in Madison Square Garden against the New York Rangers, the Sabres are 17-7-3 when Benson is in the lineup. They are only 5-8-1 when he's not. His hockey IQ is real good. He plays the game the right way. Coach Lindy Ruff said after the team's optional morning skate, he knows the situations inside the game. He's a guy that's really hard on the puck, gets on it quickly. He's a tough guy when it comes to trying to get it from him. He's small at 5'10", and I think the leverage sometimes is tough on him, so he's great at getting away from people. Benson missed the first 3 games of the season due to a facial infection that developed when he was struck by a puck during practice. He played the next 8 games and collected 8 assists even though he didn't score, and then missed 10 more games with a lower body injury before returning to the lineup for a good November 23rd. Let's say this again. Before returning to the lineup for good on November 23rd against Carolina. The Sabres are 14-6 since, including their franchise record-tying 10-game winning streak. Guys doing a lot of little things contributed a ton to that 10 game for sure. Benson said, "We found that every guy in this room has been adding little details to their game, just stopping pucks or winning one more battle a game or whatever it is. It goes a long way. If 18 guys can do that, that's 18 more battle wins a night. We're kind of keying in on that stuff, and it's showing on the ice." Benson is on pace for a career high in assists at 32 and points at 42. At 5-on-5, the Sabres have 54.4% of the shots on goal while he is on the ice in 53.9% of the high-danger scoring chances, according to the naturalstattrick.com. Benson has moved around on the lineup, and his current spot has him with center Ryan McLeod and fellow winger Jack Quinn. Okay. I know I'm here somewhere. He can make all the plays off the rush, and with Clowder's speed, he's a threat up the middle every time, Benson said. All 3 of us see the ice really well, and we're tenacious. We want the puck back. We know where it's going to be and how to get it back and how to make teams pay when we do get it. The Sabres opened the season winning just 2 of their first 13 road games, but Benson said their mindset has completely shifted since. They won 7 straight until Saturday's 5-1 loss in Columbus, and entered Thursday at 9-10-2 out of town. Confidence. It just takes 1 win, Benson said. You get in that 1 and you start to feel confident. You get a second and then you start thinking, yep, we're a good hockey team. We can win in any building any night. We've come to realize that another team might be unbelievable on paper like Dallas, the team Buffalo beat on New Year's Eve, but you go in there and we had won 9 in a row and we're a good hockey team too. You can win any game in this league, and that's been our mindset. So hopefully we'll continue to do well.
Well, the game ended too late to make it into the paper this morning, but the Sabres won 5-2 against the New York Rangers on the Rangers ice last night.
Good.
Turning to high school sports, Clevis Murray covers them rather thoroughly. After winning the Section 6 Class B title last season, the Akron boys basketball team has become the benchmark for small school hoops. Akron, now 7-1, spent the opening weeks of the season improving on last year. The Tigers blitzed their first 7 opponents, earning the number 1 spot in the News Small Schools poll and number 2 in the state Class B rankings. Although Tuesday against Newfane proved to be a reminder of how heavy it can be as a champion, the 59-44 loss was the first stumble for a team now spending the season under a microscope. The program's leaders are an offensive trio who have played together for years. For Coach Justin Gertstong, who is Benjamin Gertstong's father and Blake Gertstong's uncle, the sideline isn't just a workspace but a family gathering with high stakes. I'd be lying if I were saying that states weren't part of the conversation, Justin Gertstong said. But ultimately, it comes back to us just trying to maximize every day together. We're just trying to manage the expectations and not get too high. The team's top players leave opposing coaches with no easy answers. Darren Brooks is a two-way force, averaging 20.1 points and 12.6 rebounds with nearly 3 blocks a game. He's a anchor and physical presence at 6'7", who allows his perimeter players to gamble and play fast. On the outside is the Gerstung duo. Blake is averaging 19.9 points a game, and Benjamin is at 15.4 points per game. The trio looked hard to stop until a recent encounter with Newfane. The Newfane defeat, coming off a holiday layoff, showed the team's rust. The Tigers looked uncharacteristic of their identity, struggling to find the energy that usually defines their games. It was a wake-up call. The road to another section title, and hopefully a state title, requires more than the production of Brooks and the Gerstungs. They need help from the guys not often talked about and a long-term commitment to the daily process. Every team starts the year wanting to win states, Justin Gerstung said. We also know we've just got to win the day, too.
White captures a Kent Hull Award. This is from Catherine Fitzgerald. There was a time when Tre'Davious White would show his speed by running away. The Buffalo Bills cornerback went through a period when he was not so media-friendly, turned down requests to talk. Injuries played a part as White closed off a piece of himself, then he went away. But ever since White, who spent a sabbatical year playing for the Rams and the Ravens, returned to the Bills this offseason, he's been ready and willing to talk. His comeback arc reflects how he feels to be back in Buffalo with people he knows, and on Thursday, White's willingness to interview was recognized. White was given the Kent Hull Stand-Up Guy Award, an annual honor given to the Bills player who best demonstrates collaboration, professionalism, and respect with the media. White has been available, honest, and insightful throughout the practice week and after games this season. The award was voted on by 29 members of the Buffalo chapter of the Pro Football Writers of America, who regularly cover the team, and White was presented with a plaque. Man, what? Y'all gave me the award? White asked in classic fashion. I appreciate that. My teammates gotta be mean as expletive if you're all giving me this award, but I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to cherish this. White said it was important for him to talk to the media, knowing that he can give us perspective on what happens behind the scenes for the Bills each week without giving away any game strategy. Past winners of the awards include left tackle Deion Hawkins in 2022, center Mitch Morris in 2023, and nickel quarterback Taron Johnson in 2024. Dawkins was excited to see White join the fraternity, telling the cornerback that he keeps his award in his house. This is cool, man, Dawkins said. I said, yeah, Trey, the Good People Award, man, doing the extra when you might not have time, but it's cool. It's cool to see another guy get that deserves to have a similar piece of metal that will go home. I think it's dope, I really do. Dawkins agrees that White looks rejuvenated this season now that he's back in Buffalo. It's refreshing, Dawkins said. This league weighs on you. And for Trey to go to the Rams and the Ravens and to know that this is home, and for him to come back here and he can be his full self and have the support system that he does, eat the same food and vibe the same way. It's beautiful to have your guys around you that you started this, but it's also beautiful being at a place where you feel yourself, where you can be great. And Trey White is back home, and I'm happy for him. So,
Well, it's 33 minutes past the hour. Time for some advice.
Let's get some advice.
Yeah, once again, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. Here's Eric with some advice. Dear Eric, I recently pet sat for some somewhat new friends. I'd been invited on a weekend trip with them, but had a work commitment that meant I couldn't go. I offered to pet sit for them, which is something I've done for other friends from time to time. During the weekend, there was an incident which wasn't really anyone's fault that resulted in some minor property damage. I let them know via text what happened and explained the situation and offered to cover any damages. They were super nice and have followed up several times to say it's fine and not to worry about it and to make sure I was okay. One texted me to let me know he used it as a motivation to upgrade to something nicer. I feel like things are smoothed over, but I also want some resolution so I can feel like our friendship is back on an even keel. Should I insist on buying them a fancy gift, take them out to a very nice dinner, insist on paying for my share of the repair, or offer pet sitting for life? If they have moved on, I also want to move on, and don't want them to feel that I'm making too big a deal out of it when all they've been is generous. Signed, Oops. Dear oops, take them at their word that it's water under the bridge. It sounds like what happened really was an accident, and they're not holding ill will toward you. You've asked them how to make it right, and they've said it's all good. If you're still anxious, either take them out to dinner to get face-to-face confirmation that all is well and move on, or send them a check with your best guess at the cost of the repairs and a note thanking them for their graciousness. I'm reminded of a story I heard on Late Night with Seth Meyers. The actress Lisa Bonet was staying at Taylor Swift's house while the singer was away. Somehow, Bonet's Burmese python got into one of the walls in the house. I presume this isn't what happened during your pet sitting stay, but one never knows. To get the snake out, contractors had to take apart part of the wall. Bonet's daughter, Zoe Kravitz, decided not to tell Taylor Swift anything about it until everything was back to new. Taylor's response, she'd already heard about it from her house manager, and she'd been laughing about it for weeks. Now, I imagine that your friends aren't quite as wealthy as Taylor Swift, but the point is when someone says mistakes happen, all is forgiven, we're allowed to believe them. Who knows? They may be feeling guilty that while doing them a favor, you had to deal with this incident. At the end of the day, everyone is okay. Their house is fine, and there are no snakes in the walls. There's no bad blood here.
A Burmese python.
Wow.
How friendly.
Yeah, dear Eric, I have a friend I've known for many years. Lately, he's been avoiding people and not going out as much. He recently confided in me that he's having problems at home, that his wife is an alcoholic, and she's mean when she drinks. He hasn't been physically abused, but is taking a mental and emotional beating. It's affecting him to the point he is isolating himself. He is in his 60s, and I'm worried about him. How can I help? Worried friend. Dear friend, it's good that he confided in you. He needs outside support, and he likely needs to hear that he's not trapped and there are options. First, address the isolation. Be proactive about inviting him over, going over to check on him, and reminding him that he doesn't have to be around his wife when she's drinking. If you have the space, offer him a place to stay for a night. Knowing that he has another option will do wonders. Suggest that he talk with someone from the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Emotional abuse is domestic abuse, and it can escalate and endanger your friend. He is not alone, and there are local and national resources for him. Don't diagnose or shame him. Listen, reflect back on what you're hearing, and offer options. And finally, suggest that he go to an Al-Anon meeting or a Smart Recovery Family meeting online or in person. Volunteer to go with him if you can. Going to one of those meetings won't require him to admit anything nor commit to anything, but what he'll find is that he's not alone, and there are people who have been in this position, and it can help him find a way out. They will have options for getting your friend's wife the help that she needs. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Nope.
I feel for the guy. Back to the front page and back to sports. The Sabres are pushing to host the NHL draft. Sources confirm that. This is from Mike Harrington. Is the NHL draft coming back to Buffalo? It just might happen in June, although it won't be as big as its previous visits. The Buffalo Sabres are deep into the process of serving as a host for the first round of this year's draft, the Buffalo News has confirmed. ESPN play-by-play man John Buccigross, one of the top NFL voices in the right shoulder network, first mentioned the possibility Thursday in a cryptic tweet that paid tribute to his love of the chicken parmesan at Mulberry Restaurant in Lackawanna. It came with a picture of him and analyst A.J. Mlechko admiring the 2-foot Big Parm Thompson sandwich sold at KeyBank Center in honor of the Sabres star Tage Thompson. The team had no comment on the tweet or on his prospects of being the draft host, but an NHL source told the News that the Sabres have serious interest. It's unclear how many of the teams would be in the running and whether the event will be held at KeyBank Center or some other locale. The first round is expected to be held on June 26th. The Sabres previously hosted the draft in 1991 at Memorial Auditorium and in 1998 and 2016 at KeyBank Center. Those three events were centralized drafts, meaning all league and team officials were on site in the draft city doing all their work. NHL general managers voted to have last year's draft in a decentralized format, meaning they stayed in their cities and built war rooms to make their picks remotely. The Sabres opted to use the Bills' draft facilities in Orchard Park for the weekend. Players expected to go in the first round were on site at the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles, and they got their moment on stage with their new team and the NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, but the event was widely panned as a television flop because of players then spoke live on air to their drafting teams, and there were technical problems with several of the hookups. NHL media members also ridiculed the format because it eliminates the league convention style of drafts that had been held for decades. With no media, far fewer players and families are traveling to the host city, and the economic benefit is more muted than previous drafts. The GMs approved the same format again for this year, although large revisions are expected to be made on the television presentation. Sportsnet reported last month that there is some thought of having rounds 1 and 2 on the first night before teams do rounds 3 to 7 the next day. Sabres and Bills owner Terry Pegula is widely known for wanting as many marquee events as he can get. The Sabres, for example, have played in 3 outdoor games, 2 since Pegula became owner, and made 2 overseas trips in the Pegula years. They are also pushing to host an outdoor pennant. Sale proceeds will benefit Rise of Western New York Community Coffee House, a Buffalo-based coffee shop. Whoops, I'm in the wrong place. I'm sorry. The game in 2028, the new Highmark Stadium, will mark the 20th anniversary of the iconic 2008 game in Ralph Wilson Stadium that they lost in a shootout to the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Bills, meanwhile, submitted a bid in August to host the NFL draft in 2028 or 2029, in the new Highmark being a focal point of the activities. 2 of Buffalo's 3 previous NHL drafts were major moments in the league's landscape. The first, on June 22nd of 1991, marked the selection of Canadian junior superstar Eric Lindros as a number 1 overall pick by the Quebec Nordiques. But he followed through on a pre-draft promise not to don the team's jersey and demand a trade. It took a year for that to happen, as Lindros was dealt to the Philadelphia Flyers on June 30th of 1992. The number 2 selection in Buffalo's 91 draft was winger Pat Falloon of the Spokane Chiefs, and he got a huge ovation from the odd crowd when he donned the jersey of the San Jose Sharks and became the new franchise's first draft choice. The 2016 draft is the most remembered for the Toronto Maple Leafs drafting Arizonan Austin Matthews as the number 1 overall out of the Swiss League, and Matthews just became Toronto's all-time goal leader last week. The Sabres had the number 8 pick in the draft, and then general manager Tim Murray blew the selection by taking Swedish winger Alex Nylander ahead of the prominent NHL defensemen like Mikhail Sergachev of Utah, Charlie McAvoy of Boston, and Jacob Chychrun of Washington. Nylander played only 19 games with the Sabres. Stanley Cup champion Matthew Tkachuk went number 6 to Calgary in 2016, and Buffalo's Thompson was taken here at number 26 overall by the St. Louis Blues out of the University of Connecticut before being traded to the Sabres 3 years later. The 1998 draft in Buffalo was not remotely close to either of those two in terms of star power. Future Tampa Bay captain and Stanley Cup champion Vincent LeCavalier was the number 1 overall pick, and Plymouth, Ontario center David Legwand went to number 2 to Nashville as the Predators made their first pick in franchise history in Buffalo. Legwand played with Nashville through 2014 and closed a 1,136-game NHL career by playing 79 games for the Sabres in 2015 to 2016. Oh.
On a different topic, Lisa Mascaro and Kevin Freyking of the Associated Press report in a remarkable rebuke of Republican leadership. The House is moving ahead Thursday on legislation that would extend expired health care subsidies for the Affordable Care Act after renegade GOP lawyers joined essentially all Democrats to help millions of Americans afford insurance under Obamacare. Forcing the issue to a vote came about after a handful of Republicans signed on to a so-called discharge petition to unlock debate, bypassing objections from House Speaker Mike Johnson. If approved, the bill would go to the Senate, where pressure is building for a similar bipartisan compromise. Without action, estimates are that millions will go uninsured this year. Together, the rare political coalitions are rushing to resolve the standoff over the enhanced tax credits that were put in place during the COVID-19 crisis, but expired late last year after no agreement was reached during the government shutdown. The affordability crisis is not a hoax. It is very real, despite what Donald Trump has had to say, said House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, invoking the president's remarks. Democrats made clear before the government was shut down that we were in this affordability fight until we win this affordability fight, he said. Today we have an opportunity to take a meaningful step forward. Ahead of voting, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated that the bill, which would provide a 3-year extension of the subsidy, would increase the nation's deficit by about $80.6 billion over the decade. At the same time, it would increase the number of people with health insurance by 100,000 this year, 3 million in 2027, 4 million in 2028, and 1.1 million in 2029, the CBO said. Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, worked for months to prevent this situation. His office argued yesterday that the federal health care funding from the COVID-19 era is ripe with fraud, pointing to an investigation in Minnesota, and urged no vote. While the momentum shows the growing support for the tax breaks that have helped some 22 million Americans have access to health insurance, the Senate would be under no requirements to take up the House bill. Instead, a small group of senators from both parties has been working on an alternative plan that could find support in both chambers and become law. One proposal would be to shorten the extension of the subsidy to 2 years and make changes to the program, particularly to root out fraud. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican from South Dakota, said for any plan to find support in his chamber, it will need to have income limits to ensure that the financial aid is focused on those who most need the help. He and other Republicans also want to ensure that beneficiaries would have to at least pay a nominal amount for their coverage. Finally, Thune said there would need to be some expansion of health savings accounts, which allow people to save money and withdraw tax-free as long as the money is spent on qualified medical expenses. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a Democrat from New Hampshire, who is part of the negotiations on reforms and subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, said there is agreement on addressing fraud in health care. We recognize that we have millions of people in this country who are going to lose, are losing, or have lost their health insurance because they can't afford the premiums, Shaheen said. And so we're trying to see if we can't get some agreement that's going to help, and the sooner we can do that, the better. Trump has pushed Republicans to send money directly to Americans for health savings accounts so they can bypass the federal government and handle insurance on their own. Democrats largely reject this idea as insufficient for covering the high costs of health care. Mm-hmm. The action by Republicans to force a vote has been an affront to Johnson and his leadership team, who essentially lost control of what comes to the House floor as the Republican lawmakers joined Democrats for the workaround. After last year's government shutdown failed to resolve the issue, Johnson had discussed allowing more politically vulnerable GOP lawmakers a chance to vote on another health care bill that would temporarily extend the subsidies while also adding changes. But after days of discussions, Johnson and the GOP leadership sided with the more conservative wing, which has assailed the subsidies as propping up ACA, which they consider a failed government program. He offered a modest proposal of health care reforms that was approved, but has stalled. It was then that rank-and-file lawmakers took matters into their own hands, as many of their constituents faced soaring health insurance premiums beginning this month. Republican Representatives Brian Fitzpatrick, Robert Bresnahan, and Ryan McKenzie, all from Pennsylvania, and Mike Lawler of New York, signed the Democrats' petition, pushing it to the magic number of 218 needed to force a House vote. All four represent key swing districts whose races will help determine which party takes charge of the House next year. Lawler has portrayed the bill as a vehicle senators could use to reach a compromise. No matter the issue, if the House puts forward relatively strong bipartisan support, it makes it easier for senators to get there, Lawler said. What started as a long-shot effort by Democrats to offer a discharge petition has become a political vindication of the Democrats' government shutdown strategy as they fought to preserve the health care funds. Democrats are making clear that the higher health insurance costs many Americans are facing will be a political centerpiece of their efforts to retake the majority in the House and Senate in the fall elections. Trump, during a lengthy speech this week to House GOP lawmakers, encouraged his party to take control of the health care debate. an issue that has stymied Republicans since he tried and failed to repeal Obamacare during his first term.
From Washington News, the Senate advances resolution to limit Trump's war power. This is from Stephen Groves and Joey Capoletti of the Associated Press. The Senate advanced a resolution Thursday that would limit President Trump's ability to conduct further attacks against Venezuela, sounding a note of disapproval for his expanding ambitions in the Western Hemisphere. Democrats and 5 Republicans voted to advance the war powers resolution on a 52-47 vote and ensure a vote next week on final passage. It has virtually no chance of becoming law because Trump would have to sign it if it were to pass the Republican-controlled House. Still, it was a significant gesture that shows unease among some Republicans after the U.S. military seized Venezuela leader Nicolas Maduro in a surprise nighttime raid. Trump's administration is now seeking to control Venezuela's oil resources and his government, but the War Powers Resolution would require congressional approval for any further attacks on the South American country. To me, this is all about going forward, said Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, one of 5 Republican votes. If the president should determine, you know what, I need to put troops on the ground in Venezuela, I think that would require Congress to weigh in. The other Republicans who backed the resolution were Senators Rand Paul of Kentucky, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, and Todd Young of Indiana. Democrats have failed to pass several such resolutions in the months that Trump escalated his campaign against Venezuela, but lawmakers argue that now that Trump has captured Maduro and set his sights on other conquests, such as Greenland, the vote represents the Republican-controlled Congress with an opportunity. It's time for Congress to assert its control over military action of this kind. It's time to get this out of secrecy and put in the light, said Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, who forced the vote. Republican leaders have said they have no advance notification of the raid early morning Saturday to seize Maduro and his wife, Cia Flores, but most expressed satisfaction this week as top administration officials provided classified briefings on the operation. The administration has used an evolving set of legal justifications for the months-long campaign in Central and South America, from destroying alleged drug boats under authorization for global fight against terrorism to seizing Maduro in what was ostensibly a law enforcement operation to put him on trial in the United States. Republican leaders have backed Trump. I think the president has demonstrated at least already a very strong commitment to peace through strength, especially in this hemisphere, said Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican from South Dakota. I think Venezuela got that message loudly and clearly. A vote on similar resolution in November narrowly failed to gain the majority needed for passage. Paul and Murkowski were the only Republicans voting in favor then. Paul, an outspoken proponent of war powers resolutions, acknowledged that Maduro is seen as a bad guy and a socialist and an autocrat, but, Paul added, the question is about who has the power to take the country to war. Some progressive Democrats have suggested inserting language in defensive appropriations bill to limit certain military actions, but that idea met with resistance from more pragmatic members of the caucus. Democratic leaders have tried to cast Trump's foreign ambitions as a distraction from the issues that voters face at home. The American people are asking what the hell is going on in Venezuela, and why is this president who campaigned on America first now spending all his time and energy on escapades overseas? Democratic leader Chuck Schumer of New York said in a floor speech. House Democrats were also introduced to a similar resolution on Thursday. Congress was once again left in the dark during the military operation in Venezuela, with Trump later confirming when he talked to oil executives, but not leaders on Capitol Hill. That reflects a broader pattern of Trump's second term unfolding under a Republican-controlled Congress that has shown little appetite for reasserting its constitutional authority to declare war. Under the Constitution, Congress declares war while the president serves as commander-in-chief, but lawmakers have not formally declared war since World War II, granting the presidents broad latitude to act unilaterally. Congress attempted to rein in that authority after Vietnam War with the War Powers Resolution passed over Republican President Richard Nixon's veto. The law requires presidents to notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying forces and to end military action within 60 to 90 days, absent authorization. limits that presidents of both parties have routinely stretched. Democrats argue those limits are being pushed further than ever. Some Republicans have gone further still, contending congressional approval is unnecessary altogether. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, a close Trump ally who traveled with the president aboard Air Force One on Sunday, said he would be comfortable with Trump taking over other countries without congressional approval, including Greenland. The commander-in-chief is a commander-in-chief. They can use military force, Graham said. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, aren't we?
I'm afraid so.
What comic do you think is the best?
Well, I like Zitz today.
I do too. I think that one's great.
It was great a couple days ago, and Jeremy was reminded he needs to clean his room. He said, "I'm going to clean my room. I promise I'll clean my room. I don't need to be reminded every 6 months." Today, Mom is telling him, "Jeremy, we have some new friends coming over." He says, "Okay," and as the doorbell rings, she says, "So just Jeremy said, "What? Try not to be yourself." Good luck with that one.
Good
Mom.
luck with that one. Well, you've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, January 9th of 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Don Williams
and J.J. Patak. Thank you for listening.
Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides direct connection to free, confidential, and compassionate support. When you call, text, or chat 988, you'll be quickly connected to trained crisis counselors who will listen to your concerns, provide support, and connect you to additional resources if needed. There is hope. The Lifeline works. You are not alone in crisis. For 24/7 confidential support, just call, text, or chat 988. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,